I mean, come on. These guys create gods with their minds. You think I wasn't going to make a video on them? These guys are ridiculous, in a good way. And the goal of today's encounter is to use the Kuo-toa skill set to make a knee slapper of an encounter that is wildly open-ended and can lead to world-shaping implications for your campaign. Hello, my name is Matt, and welcome to My Hidden Nerdy Side, a channel created by a nerd who doesn't have many nerdy friends, and so I must rant to you. And today we're tackling the creators of gods, the architects of supreme beings, the producers of deities, the Kuo-toa. We're going to take a look at their lore, info, and abilities, and then build an encounter you can steal, modify, and plop directly into your D&D games. Now, if you are well aware of the lore and mechanics behind the Kuo-toa, then feel free to pop on over to the timestamp right here so you can jump straight to the encounter itself. I'll leave a clickable version in the description below. Alright, let's take a look at the Kuo-toa. To make sure this video is a decent length, we'll only be pulling the Kuo-toa lore, info, and abilities that exist within the monster manual, all of which can be found on pages 198 to 200. So the Kuo-toa are, in quote, degenerate fish-like humanoids, and they used to live above ground on shorelines and islands. This was until they were forced underground by other humanoids. The reason why, the monster manual actually doesn't specify. What it does mention is what happened to the Kuo-toa once they were underground. And that is, they were kidnapped and enslaved by the Mind Flayers. During this time, the Illithid toyed with their minds for so long and so brutally that the Kuo-toa eventually went insane. And what happens when you drive a fish person crazy? Well, apparently they gain the ability to create gods. Yeah, and I don't mean like they create the idea of a god and devote their lives to it. I mean, if they think about a god hard enough, it becomes a physical entity. That's absolutely bonkers even by D&D standards. After their minds were shattered beyond repair, they became religious fanatics and ended up creating these gods so they could protect themselves from current and future enemies. The most apparent of these being the Drow, who killed the Kuo-toa on sight. The highest ranking and most infamous god of the Kuo-toa is Blip-Dul-Pulp. And this god was most likely created when a Kuo-toa saw a broken statue and wanted to improve upon it by giving it crustacean body parts. After thinking its new statue was so incredible, its love and devotion turned it into a god. This isn't relevant to the encounter we're making today, but I think it gives you a nice window into the thought process of a Kuo-toa. Being religious nutjobs, they are of course a theocratic society, with archpriests at the top of the food chain. Underneath them are Kuo-toa whips, who are the archpriest's children. The destiny of a whip is to eventually fight the other whips to death in order to determine who becomes the next archpriest. There are also Kuo-toa monitors, who enforce the rules set in place by the archpriest. And finally, Kuo-toa weapons are more designed for hunting, capturing, and immobilizing their foes. They also don't usually wear armor, but will decorate themselves with scavenged jewelry, bones, shells, and other fragments of carapaces and shiny things. Now, looking at their actions and abilities, which can also be found on pages 198 to 200 of the Monster Manual, there is some pretty wild stuff. There are 3 main stat blocks in the Monster Manual and a variant stat block for Kuo-toa monitors, but they are basically just whips with a better AC and stronger unarmed attacks. So all Kuo-toa are amphibious, have sunlight sensitivity, have slippery hides they can use to escape grapples, and can sense the presence of any creature within 30 feet of it that is invisible or on the ethereal plane so long as it's moving. Where their stat blocks really differ is with their actions and reactions. All Kuo-toa can make melee attacks, but your average Kuo-toa carries a sticky shield. If a creature misses with a melee weapon attack, they must make a DC 11 strength check or the Kuo-toa can catch the attacker's weapon with their shield. This can lead to a ton of wacky combat scenarios for your martial classes, and it takes an action and successful check to pry off the weapon. Kuo-toa whips have pincer staffs that kind of look like bear traps on a stick that grapple enemies on hit. On top of that, they can also cast a few minor spells and cantrips, like Shield of Faith and Bane. And finally, Kuo-toa archpriests are actually formidable foes, wielding a ton of powerful spells including Shield Guardians, Hold Person, Mass Cure Wounds, Sanctuary, Guidance, and Spiritual Weapon, just to name a few. Okay, so now that we've gone over the general Kuo-toa lore, info, and abilities, let's start crafting an encounter. This encounter / quest will be aimed at parties level 4 to 8 depending on how difficult you want to make it, and last 1 or 2 sessions depending on how much you want to stretch it out. The party's motivation should always be tailored to the campaign, but for simplicity's sake, we'll just say your party is in need of services from a special blacksmith, but they will only be able to get those services once the ongoing conflict is resolved. So first, we gotta homebrew some gods, and we're going to need 2 of them. So whenever homebrewing your own creature, a nice starting off point is just to take an existing creature and alter it until you have something. We'll keep it simple to keep this video a decent length, and take the Hezro and Glabrazu from the monster manual. We will then slap a fish head on both, make the Hezro green and the Glabrazu blue, make them both gargantuan, give the Hezro another attack to make it more on par with the Glabrazu. Instead of claws, we'll also give it grapple on hit pincers like the Glabrazu, and boom. We have 2 minor Kuo-toa gods. We'll call the Hezro Jilp Joop and the Glabrazu Glip Glop. What am I saying? Oh god. Oh man. Anyways, the objective is not to make combat impossible, but make it really challenging, which is okay, since killing these makeshift gods won't necessarily be the goal. Here are some ways to tweak these creatures further than I just did to change their difficulty. But remember, you'll want to describe the future encounter in a way that suggests taking on these monsters, aka gods, will be very difficult, which should prompt your party to seek out other solutions. So your party will be traveling to a shoreline village that we'll call Bricklewhite, and they'll be heading to it because it is said to be the home of a skilled blacksmith who has a magical anvil. The party is hoping the blacksmith will forge insert quest item here for whatever they are doing. However, when they arrive at the village, they will see the majority of the village is completely destroyed, and there are 2 gargantuan fish-like monsters duking it out over what remains. If the party immediately jumps in, well, it probably won't end well for them. I mean, a Hezro and a Glabrazu against a level 4 party, even if they're a big and skilled one, will be incredibly difficult. But if they wait a bit, eventually one of the monsters will start to lose and will run away down the shoreline. After that, the remaining monster will sit down, rest, and relax within the remnants of the village. If the party attacks now, they'll have a better chance, but it still won't look great for them. However, if your party looks around, they will be able to see footprints in the sand that lead down the opposite end of the shoreline and into a nearby forest. Within the forest, there will be tents set up and many villagers posting up near campfires. If the party talks with them, they will tell the party about what's going on. See, there used to be a single Kuo-toa tribe that lived in caves to the east of Bricklewhite. They primarily left the village alone and would even trade with the village on rare occasion. However, one day, a massive green fish-like monster wearing a haphazardly stitched together tunic came from the west, and a massive blue fish-like monster came from the east. This has been going on for weeks now, where the victorious monster stays in the village to rest while the other runs away, regroups, and then comes back to fight the following day. A week ago, a few villagers found a lone Kuo-toa and spoke with it. Since the village did trade with the Kuo-toa on rare occasion, a couple of villagers learned to speak Undercommon. The Kuo-toa explained the situation. The Kuo-toa tribe used to follow the will of Glip-glop, but then some insubordinate Kuo-toa created their own god Jilp-joop. And now the rival factions pit their gods against each other daily to see whose god is better. The followers of Glip-glop are a nudist colony that believe covering up what you were born with is an insult to the gods, for the fish-like form of the Kuo-toa is the most beautiful of them all. Whereas the followers of Jilp-joop believe clothes lead to individuality and enhance the already majestically formed Kuo-toa, allowing them to reach even higher heights. And so the followers of Jilp-joop moved to the caves in the west and started up their own religious colony. Being exposed to the Kuo-toa for so long, the village will tell the party about how the Kuo-toa invent gods, and will explain that their gods gain power from the number of followers they have, and if there are no followers, the god withers away. These villagers have now given up on their home and are now planning to move to the big city, and among the villagers will be the blacksmith. But sadly, his magic anvil will still be at his forge in town. Therefore, unless this god problem is solved, he can't forge what the party needs. So with all that information, I mean, there are so many different ways this encounter could play out, which your party will absolutely love. I mean, there is the screw it and just brute force your way through approach, where the party could kill one of the gods, grab the anvil, and book it. But they could also try and be sneaky and move the anvil out of the village undetected. They could also try diplomacy, where they speak to the rival Kuo-toa tribes and convince them to join the other tribe by slagging on their ideals and beliefs, and showing them why being either clothed or nude is the right way to go. The party could also, of course, wait for the tribe's chosen god to leave for their daily battle and then kill one or both of the Kuo-toa tribes, resulting in both of their gods vanishing and the village returning to normal. Or they could just slay one tribe, leaving the other tribe victorious and having no need to use the village as a battleground any longer. Or the party could even pick a side, rally the troops, and lead them to victory over the other Kuo tribe, wearing either shirts or skins. But here's the fun catch. The gods of the Kuo-toa's creation will become weaker and weaker the more their followers are slain, giving your party a clear combat objective. You can help your party clue in on this by describing how the gods are getting smaller and paler for every creature slain. Let's say their hit point maximum goes down by 10 for every Kuo-toa slain, and they get -1 off their attack rolls to a minimum of +3. On top of that, after 5 Kuo-toa are slain, they lose a damage die off their attacks, and even lose an extra attack after 4 Kuo-toa are slain. This only matters if you choose to have the gods come back mid-fight due to, say, the archpriest summoning them back, but it could be handled really nicely. Stealth, diplomacy, combat, a mixture of all three and more? There are literally so many different ways this could play out. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because with all the potential god slaying, naked fish people, and total freedom of choice your party has, they will surely have a terrific time. And based on what they choose to do, the surviving Kuo-toa tribe could become a religious sect that grows in power throughout your campaign, leading to a ton of potentially ridiculous encounters in the future. I'm thinking each tribe has anywhere from 8 to 15 Kuo-toa each, depending on the size and skill of your party. We'll say each tribe also has a Kuo-toa archpriest, 2 to 3 Kuo-toa whips, and 2 to 3 Kuo-toa monitors. To make combat even wackier, you could also have multiple stone slides attached to higher up ledges. Kuo-toa could use these slides to zip down at high speeds to headbutt your party, dealing 2d4 bludgeoning damage and causing them to fall prone if they fail a DC 13 dex save. You could also sprinkle narrow but deep pools of water throughout the lair the Kuo-toa can pop out of to huck spears or tridents at your party, and then hop back in for extra cover, creating an extra bit of combat difficulty, but also allowing your lightning spell casters to cook up some tasty fried fish. Now, this encounter is already quite spicy, but if we wanted to, how could we make it even spicier? Well, if you wanted to make it a deeper and more thought-provoking encounter, you could have the village be leveled and taken over by one of the Kuo-toa tribes. And the reason is, the humans who live in the village hunt and kill Kuo-toa for sport, now creating a moral dilemma for your party. Maybe the Kuo-toa tribes are both being secretly manipulated by even stronger beings for their own nefarious purposes. One side is being backed by an aboleth, and the other being backed by a coven of sea hags. And finally, maybe the blacksmith can craft some fun weapons and gadgets for the party to use in their upcoming combat, such as bombs, tripwires, flintlock weapons, and more. But of course, these are just some of the many ways you can use Kuo-toa in your Dungeons & Dragons campaign. There are tons of different ways to take this encounter and spice it up, so please let me know what you would do in the comment section below so I can nerd out over it and smack myself in the head for not thinking of it. Also, let me know if there are any creatures that you would like me to build an encounter for in my future videos. I put out videos weekly, so feel free to subscribe and share this video around if you liked it, and stay tuned for upcoming content. Thanks for watching and indulging my hidden nerdy side.